Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney Plus.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. And new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney Plus, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Kayak gets my flight, hotel, and rental car right, so I can tune out travel advice that's just plain wrong.
Bro, Skycoin. Way better than points.
Never fly during a Scorpio full moon.
Just tell the manager you'll sue. Instant room upgrade.
Stop taking bad travel advice. Start comparing hundreds of sites with Kayak and get your trip right. Kayak. Got that right.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Kelly, host of the Horror Movie Night podcast, and I am here with the esteemed guest of honor, Clint Howard.
Well, hey. Thank you, folks, and thank you, Matt.
Clint, I'm so excited to talk to you because I have been such a longtime fan of really everything from you, from the starring roles to the bit parts. I think that you are quite genuinely one of the most underappreciated and underutilized actors of our time.
Well, geez, I appreciate that. And, there are times in my life I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
Listen, as an actor, I started acting when I was really young. I enjoyed it. I understood the competition of it. And, I like to work. I'd like to work more. And, life has been really good being an actor.
You have one of those careers that I think is easy to get so caught up in pop culture to not appreciate how unique it is, where you were literally doing Disney voiceover and Roger Corman films like within a year of each other.
Well, technically, I don't know about that. I did my two famous Disney voiceovers when I was a child.
Yes.
And I didn't start working for Roger until I was a teenager.
Okay. But still very close to each other in transition there.
No, if you take a step back and look at my career, it is remarkable because I started working a lot in the mid-'60s. I worked in the early 60s, but then I was on a television show there was a black and white television show before television went color. It was a show called The Baileys of Balboa with Paul Ford and Sterling Holloway. And as it turns out, Sterling Holloway was the voice of Winnie the Pooh. So it was before Winnie the Pooh. Before I did my voiceover of Roo, I had worked with Sterling Holloway. So anyway, it's pretty remarkable. All through the famous television programs, Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Virginian, a little bit later on, Marcus Welby, MD. I did an episode of Family Affair where Buffy kicked my ass. Only in television can Clint Howard get his ass kicked by Buffy. Not the Vampire Slayer, the little girl that was in Family Affair. So anyway, and then, considering that I didn't have anything to do with it except I had an audition and my dad prepared me for the role and I won the audition, that I got this part in this science fiction show called Star Trek. And it was the first season. Nobody knew too much about it. They knew it was it was a Western in space, basically. It was Wagon Train in space. And I worked on that, and I ended up getting hired to play a 600-year-old alien, which made me the world's youngest character actor. So starting at 6 years old, I began doing character roles, and it's, been remarkable. And I'm very grateful, and it's led to a wonderful life.
I think character actor is the perfect way to describe you, because when I think of every movie that I've seen you in, whether you're starring in it, whether you're, something like Austin Powers where you show up for a line, I have never I don't think I've ever seen you not give the exact performance that was called of you in those roles. You nail the punchlines in these films where sometimes you show up and say a single line of dialogue and you nail it. I remember seeing Austin Powers in theaters and get the explosion of laughter of the delivery of some of your lines. But then you have stuff like Ice Cream Man and Evil Speak, where I genuinely don't think there's another actor on this earth that could play the Ice Cream Man the way that you play the Ice Cream Man, the way that you make us really feel for this character who is a sociopath, but you're still empathizing with this character even as you've seen him kill people.
A sociopath with a heart of gold.
Exactly.
Yes, that's me. They can put that on my tombstone. Well, God, I appreciate that. And you know what? God gave me a gift. First of all, God gave me mom and dad. I was blessed to be born into this world in the arms of my mother and my father. And then I had this big brother who is, Ron, I've said this for years and years, he's a Hall of Fame movie director.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, he is a better big brother than he is a Hall of Fame movie director. That's what kind of relationship I have with him, and he's always been a mentor, and without trying to be a mentor, and mom and dad were always so solid, and these were not untricky waters to be guiding children through television and films in the 60s. Dad just had a touch. He was like a child actor whisperer. He had a wonderful touch teaching us the fundamentals of acting. Mom was right there, as important. Mom was not really hands-on with the acting that Dad was, but Mom was right there with the support, and people think that my life was about me being a child actor, and that was part of what I did when I was young. But I was also in Little League Baseball, in Park League Basketball, in journalism when I was in junior high and high school. And I'll tell you what Mom did for me. She was my fan and she was my audience in every baseball game that I ever played. My mom, she must have had some serious calluses on her butt because she sat on those Park League benches. I played both basketball and baseball religiously from the time I was about 6 or 7 years old till the time I played high school baseball. Mom was always there supporting, I'll never forget this. I was about 12 or 13 years old and I started playing ping pong really, and I loved ping pong. She made me a holder for my ping pong paddle. She made me like this sleeve that went around my ping pong paddle, kind of like a little suitcase for my ping pong paddle. And Mom did that. Mom was just this champion lady, and she had this spirit about her that was infectious and beautiful. And let me give you one more little plug here. It's not a plug. It's just my brother and I. Ron Howard and I wrote a book called The Boys, a memoir of Hollywood and family. And it really is about us growing up as children in the entertainment business. And it really was written after Dad died. It was a love letter to both Mom and Dad. And we wrote this book, and it was, New York Times bestseller. It's something that they can put on my tombstone, that Clint Howard was a New York Times best-selling author. And we were actually on the best-selling author list for 4 weeks in a row, which is actually really cool. So anyway, the book goes into more detail about talking about Mom and Dad, but they were instrumental, And then God gave me, my face, my temperament, my personality. I firmly believe I'm a deeply spiritual person. And I know there's a connection, there's a glue out there, and it ain't me. There's this cosmic spiritual glue, and God reached down and touched me and gave me this face and this hairline, which there was a time in my life when I didn't appreciate what God had done with my hairline. But over the years, I've come to appreciate everything, and I'm very, very grateful.
The champion that is like a parent or a grandparent that just truly is obsessed with you is such a unsung hero of anyone who's successful. I think of my own grandfather, me just being a 6-year-old kid in love with wrestling, and him overhearing me really excited about a wrestling pay-per-view, and he bought it on pay-per-view, taped it, and then went as far as recreating the poster by cutting it out of the newspaper and taping it to the box and gifting it to me. And that was 35 years ago, and I still think about the amount of effort that went into something that just was to say, like, the things that you're interested in, I love about you, even if I don't care about that thing as much as you do. Like, that goes a long, long way in a child's life.
You too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you had it with your grandfather, and I had it with Mom and Dad, and that was beautiful what you just said. And you painted it perfectly.
Yeah.
Your granddad cared enough about it. He went ahead and recreated the poster, and I have those stories about my parents.
Yeah.
And that's, that is awesome.
Yeah.
But also you two about wrestling.
Oh, the 90s wrestling was where it was at.
I was 60s wrestling.
Yeah. I mean,
Freddie Blassie.
Sassy Freddie Blassie. Yeah.
And Haystack Calhoun. And Dad and I and Ron used to wrestle in our living room. They did, I don't know, probably once a week. Dad would move all the furniture to the sides, and we would have a wrestling ring. And now get this is not really a pretty picture as an adult to think about this, but I would take a pair of whitey-tighties and I would put those whitey-tighties around, making myself like one of those...
Like a luchador?
Like a wrestling mask. Jesus, I hope the mom made sure they were clean. But yeah, and probably thinking about it in retrospect, it was probably an opportunity for Dad to make sure he blew a little steam, that we blew steam off.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, if we wrestled for, 45 minutes.
You're ready to sleep.
You're ready to go to sleep. My dad was no fool. Anyway, I could go on and on about my mom and dad. But you guys, if you have an opportunity, you should read the book, or it's available on audio. I know my wife, Kat, she's a big proponent of the audio book because Ron's got a certain way that he talks. He's sort of like a jazz symphony when he speaks, and I'm a little more like kind of a punk rock act. And so what we do is we read our words that we've written, and we wrote it in that sort of style where he talks about his life from his perspective, and then I chime in. Being 5 years younger, I chime in about the perspective I had being the little brother, and it made for good reading. And if you guys haven't had a chance to read it, you guys should check it out.
You should make an alternate version where you read each other's words.
I guess so. I don't know. But listen, I love my life, and I love being Ron's little brother, and I've had a great seat at the table. And let me just jump ahead a little bit. And it came up at this convention. Somebody was talking about Solo, and my brother directed Solo, and he was a replacement director. The Lucas people decided to let the two directors that were directing the movie go after a long time. They filmed for a couple of months.
I think it was Chris Miller and Phil Lord, I believe, were the people they moved off. Yeah.
And they finally decided that they needed to replace these guys, and they quickly hunted around, and they landed on my brother. And my brother and the Lucas company had a brief bit of negotiation, and Ron decided he would take the movie, and he was very happy to be getting to work to do a Star Wars movie. And in fact, he called George Lucas, and he told George Lucas that the two guys had been replaced because he's not day-to-day operational with the Star Wars enterprise anymore. And so he called George, and he says, George, I'm going to direct Solo. And George said, I told him to hire you in the first place. So Ron was very proud that he got George's blessing. And when I got to the set to work on my scene for the week, I was so proud that they were hiring my brother to be at the tip of the spear of that operation. Because you have no idea, with technology and the care and the creativity, what they apply to make those Star Wars movies. There is no stone unturned. There is no dollar left unspent. They will do what they have to make those movies as good as they can make. And they hired my brother to be the guy to do it. And when I was there on the set, I had a flashback of when he was 16 years old and I was 11 years old, and he was beginning to seriously make films for the first time. I mean, he had played with a Super 8 camera before, but he was about 16 years old when he really decided, I'm going to start being a storyteller. I'm going to take some film, I'm going to shoot an idea, and I'm going to cut it together, and I'm going to tell a story, because that's what he considers himself. He's a story smith. And I remember when he started, and he had a dream of being a director, and nobody gave him a lick of a chance. This is way before the industry embraced young people to direct. I mean, Ron got laughed at. When Ron was 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, telling people he wanted to be a movie director, yeah, that's good, cute kid, Opie, you know. But Ron had the gumption and the drive, and he kept up, and he got himself in a position to where Roger Corman wanted to hire him to be an actor in a movie, and Ron said, well, I will be an actor in your movie if you will give me an opportunity to direct one of your movies. And Roger, having a keen sense of what's good, he agreed, you know. And so Ron got to direct his first movie, which was Grand Theft Auto. But I remember when he was 16 years old and wanted to do it so badly, and then on the set of Solo, here he was with confidence and a surety getting to direct. It was really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, they say in music, if Weird Al parodies you, you know you've made it. I feel like you know that you've been embraced by the film industry if they're going to give you a Star Wars movie. Because there are few franchises that are more hard to break through and be given that opportunity than that franchise.
And I thought Ron did a great job on Solo.
Yeah.
I know. Listen, I was really proud of his work. And so anyway, listen, I've been very lucky because I got to do, when I was a little kid, I was in Star Trek.
Yeah. You've done both of them.
I've done both of them, and I've done a lot of different Star Treks. Listen, again, I didn't make the choices. I did suit up and show up.
Yeah.
You know, and I did. Now, lately, the last 2 or 3 times I've appeared in the world of Star Trek, they've asked me to be on. But I auditioned for the original Star Trek series. I auditioned for Deep Space Nine. I mean, I went in and there was somebody that finished second. There was some kid that almost got the job in the original Star Trek, in the Corbomite maneuver. You know, and I don't know, as luck would have it, as fate would have it, I've always said that, the casting director may think they're the casting director, but God truly is the one doing the casting.
Yeah, he's doing the guiding there.
Yeah.
Well, we are at a horror convention, so we do have to shift things from the fun of the sci-fi to talk about, I would almost say there was this giant late 80s into the early to mid 90s Clint Howard horror moment where you're in the Silent Night, Deadly Night sequels, and you're in one of my personal favorites, Ticks. But then I think the thing that people are going to get photo ops here for is Ice Cream Man. You stumble into this small film that just absolutely took over the video store.
Well, yes, it did. Thank you. And I did not stumble into it. I auditioned for the role of Gregory in Ice Cream Man. They'd actually hired somebody else to play the Ice Cream Man, but the director wanted to do some casting, and he had my agent submitted me for the role, and I went in and met with Norman, and in hindsight, Norman said, "Oh, we got to hire Clint." So it was right place, right time. But it wasn't an offer.
Yeah.
It was an audition. And I'm so grateful that happened. And as a matter of fact, I did a wonderful amount of fun success with Ice Cream Man. Listen, a fun little horror movie for kids, kind of,
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it was their first horror movie that they ever saw. And it was in the era of video stores.
Yeah.
So kids would go to the video store, they'd see the box and Ice Cream Man, and they'd rent it, and they would be tremendously satisfied. And to this day, it's probably it's certainly my number one seller at a horror convention.
Yeah.
And it's kind of probably my number one selling photo in any convention.
It's one of the best pieces of box art that I think has ever existed.
Yeah.
It's so iconic.
My creepy face holding a bloody ice cream cone. I mean, take that to the bank. And this, I'll tell you what, I've got to do. I got to go ahead and follow up with this. Yes. Made the little movie, 1994. Didn't really appreciate it at the time. It was fun. Over the years, people would start calling out, "Hey, Ice Cream Man," on the streets, So it resonated. A few years ago, my wife, Kat, and I, and Norman Apstein, the director, sort of decided that we were going to figure out a way to try to do another Ice Cream Man. And Norman and I were hatching plans along with Kat, and it was, we really didn't want to do a sequel. Gregory dies in the friggin' ice cream maker, and it seemed like that story was just about over. And we didn't really want to do a prequel. And we really didn't want to do anything. We wanted to do another Ice Cream Man.
Yeah.
So we just invented this great story. We've landed on this wonderful, wonderful story about a guy that sells ice cream. And what makes a man decide to start putting body parts in ice cream? Because on page 1, Craigie is not that man. Craigie is not a monster at the beginning of the movie. But yet things happen. To the point where on about page 60, give or take, he decides to take out his meat cleaver and make Rocky Road ice cream the real organic way. So anyway, we've developed it. We've just recently, even in the last couple of weeks, we've heard some great news as far as fully getting the thing off the ground. And we're technically in pre-production, and we're literally within the next couple of weeks on the verge of going into full-blown pre-production. And we're going to probably shoot in early spring of 2026 and have it out into the marketplace as quick as possible, as quick as the distributors want us to have it in the marketplace. We're going to have it. But we're excited about it.
I am very excited for us to revisit that world. Let's throw it to the crowd for a little bit. Does anybody here have any questions for Clint Howard? All right.
I don't know if it was 1999, but the MTV had music awards, and they honored you with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Do you still have the Spaceman? And do you?
Well, it was a golden bucket of popcorn, and darn tootin'. Yeah. We have it. For a while we have it on the mantle of our fireplace, and that we replaced it kind of with family pictures and stuff. But it's prominently displayed in our house, and it's something I'm very proud of. And I'll give you a tiny little inside bit of trivia on that. This is a weird thing, because I was working on a Addams Family reunion movie. And it was April Fool's. It was April 1st when my agent called me and said, the MTV people just contacted us, and they want to give you the Lifetime Achievement Award. And I literally remember telling Daryl, I go, "Don't bullshit me, Daryl. It's April Fool's. You just, that's a good one. That's a really good one." He goes, No, they're very serious about it. They love your work, and they want to celebrate you. Now, granted, the year before, they gave the award to Chewbacca.
Yeah.
So I understood this is not the Peabody Award or anything like that, but given the opportunity to be given an award, an opportunity to go up on stage and to speak to the industry and to the fans for a few minutes and thank them, I certainly said yes. And it was a great experience. I remember. I mean, it was a fun, fun moment, and I have distinct memories of that evening, and it's something that people remember, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
I think the other part about that gets lost a little bit is, like you said, prior to this, the year prior, they gave it to Chewbacca. And like, maybe there was a satirical thing that they were working at, but you went up there and gave such a beautiful, heartfelt speech. They retired the award after that.
Yeah.
You were also the last person to get the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah, they suspended giving the Lifetime Achievement Award because I went up there and took it seriously. And listen, I knew what it was. I was fully prepared, and I was going to have to give a speech. And of course, I knew it was MTV. I wanted to be hip and maybe tell a few jokes. And I wrote a speech that I thought was kind of funny and hip and clever. And I went over to my dad's house and I read it to him. And he said, that you're doing it wrong. You need to be genuine about the speech. Just treat the award like it was,
an Oscars.
Yes. Yeah. Be humble, be grateful, thank the people. I mean, isn't that how you feel? And I go, yeah, pretty much. He goes, well, just do that. So I went back home and I rewrote the speech to the speech that I said.
Yeah.
And my God, my dad had a touch because he nailed it. He nailed it. I was genuine. The audience appreciated it. I had Adam Sandler, gave me big giant hug, and Mike Myers, who I'd worked on their movies. They, everybody embraced me, and maybe it was because of my genuine approach, and that was not my first instinct.
Yeah. No, I genuinely think that it is one of my favorite acceptance speeches in the world because it is such a heartfelt moment that I really do think MTV said, we're never going to top this.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's cool. And, God, there's, and I was really young. I mean, it's not like was some old crusty dinosaur getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. I mean, I was pretty much in the prime of my career. And yet I'd been working a long time. That's the thing. Jesus, you realize that in a couple of months, I will be fully in my 64th year as a professional actor. My first television appearance, I did it in 1961. And it appeared on television in 1962. So it's mind-boggling. I mean, I am in rarefied air.
Yeah.
And I say that with all humility. It's just, blows me away. And I want to keep satisfying the fans, keep making money. Because it is a business. Listen, I love entertaining people. But I love entertaining people because it's a way for me to make an income because I have a wife and a daughter. And, listen, you want to do good. You want to bring home the bacon. Well, we don't need bacon in our house, so we bring home the moolah. So anyway, that's just, I like doing it, and I want to keep doing it. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, more questions out there in the crowd?
Here's one, this fellow.
What are the aspects of acting that you enjoy a lot, and which are somewhat troublesome or frustrating?
What are your favorite and least favorite parts of acting?
Are you saying what are my favorite and least favorite?
Yeah.
Aspects of being
an actor. Well, I love nailing it. Because I'm an audience, and I love it when I feel like, yeah, that was good. I've had it several times in my life where I've been in a situation with top quality actors where I feel like the material's really cooking. My scenes with Ed Harris in Apollo 13, I just felt like there was, we were dialed in, man, and it was cooking. And I really appreciate that. And then in the exact opposite way, when I feel like that I've left something on the table, when the scene is over and everybody says, oh, that's great, Clint, time for lunch. And I go kind of feeling empty in my stomach. And it's a little less now than it used to be, but I went through a period in my middle age, I mean, in my 30s and 40s, where I was not satisfied as an actor, as a person with a job. I was not satisfied because I would go home every night thinking, oh, I should have done better, which is, it eats at you. Now, I've learned over time that I must be doing something right because I keep getting hired. And I keep getting people with smiles on their faces coming up and saying I'm good. And I appreciate that. So I got to park my thinking and go, well, I must be okay because people like me. But generally, sometimes driving home after a day of work and feeling like I've underachieved, it's just a bad feeling. And I'll give you one more example. And there might not be too many people that have seen this, but it was a short film that I did that Michael Keaton directed, and it was on the David Letterman Film Festival. And you can go and look at it on YouTube. It's called But I'm Happy, directed by Michael Keaton. And it was this little fun short that he wrote, and he took it seriously. He wrote it and directed it. And he asked me if I would be in his short. And I said, sure, I'd love to, Michael. He's a good guy. And I went and I worked on his short, and it was all day. We filmed down in Santa Monica at a carpet store, at a carpet sales store. And I remember distinctly driving home thinking, God, I really let him down. That was really not, I didn't do good. I wish I was better. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I was really hard on myself. And then a couple of months later, I saw it. And I went, that's really good. And that next morning, the director from The Wraith called my agent and said, I just saw one of your clients on the David Letterman Film Festival, and I want to hire him to be in The Wraith. It was Mike Marvin. So that reminded me at that age that from my chair as an actor, sometimes I don't know my performance. You know, because look at it. I've got everything going on in my head. I got all the dialogue I'm trying to sort out. I got business I have to remember to do. Did I have a good lunch? Did my lunch? I don't like the way I feel right now. And now it's time for me to act. And I'm trying to process all this stuff. That's not a very good position to be a viewer of my work. I have to also then just accept that my position, my chair, is not the best. Let the director be the judge. Let the audience be the judge. So anyway, those are things I've had to practice over the years. I saw another hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw another one back there.
Yes.
I was just wondering, you worked with Rob Zombie, so how did that start, and like, what was your experience like working with him?
How'd you get started with Zombie?
Okay, Rob's a champ. He really is. He's a really good dude. And the first time I met Rob Zombie, it was at one of these conventions. It was a pop convention in Los Angeles at the Beverly Garland Hotel. It was one of the first conventions I'd ever done. And I was probably 30 years old at the time. And I'm there signing autographs, and up to my table walks Johnny Ramone. And he looked like Johnny Ramone. And fuck, Johnny, what are you doing here? Because I'd worked on Rock and Roll High School with him. And next to him was this long-haired guy with a scraggly beard, and I didn't know who he was. And Johnny goes, oh, we're just here collecting posters. This is my friend Rob Zombie. So at that day, I met Rob, and he must have taken a liking to me. We talked for a few minutes, and then later on, I had the chance to work on a film that he did, and then he called me to work. He was directing a commercial, and he called me one day and he said, hey, Clint, I'm here in the producer's office of this commercial that I'm getting ready to direct. And they said, we're looking for a Clint Howard type. And Rob said, I happen to have Clint Howard's phone number in my phone. Would you like me to call him? And they said, would you? And so I'm calling you now. Would you like to be in this commercial? I said, sure, Rob. You know, listen, the thing about Rob is he looks like Rob Zombie, for Christ's sakes. He is the most astute, concentrated filmmaker. He's on par with any other filmmaker I've ever worked with. He doesn't answer his cell phone. He doesn't bullshit around. It's all about satisfying the story and getting the job done on time. what you got to realize about movie making is we are all beholden to the investment. We've been given X amount of dollars to make a movie. We have to respect the investment that we are given to tell our story. If we don't respect the money, if we don't make it our job to get the thing done on time and on schedule, because that would be like spitting in the face of your parents. They're the ones giving you the chance, and you don't respect them. No, so I'm a big believer. When I'm going to be the co-director of another Ice Cream Man, and I'm going to be, I'm going to have do the best quality job I can do, but I'm also going to get the thing in on time and on budget. Because otherwise, we wouldn't be making a movie if it wasn't for the people that invested in us. So anyway, that's how I feel about that.
Talking about Ice Cream Man and another Ice Cream Man, you're going to be doing some pretty exciting photo opportunities at this convention right after this panel. Actually, you'll be doing some in costume as well as some outside, out front in the of the hotel with an ice cream truck. And I mention that because we do have a very strict cutoff time. So if you have a question that you want to ask Clint Howard, you've got roughly 10 minutes left to get that question. So throw up a hand if you have a question for Clint.
Do you have another one? No? You're just scratching your chin?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
We have one here, this gentleman and then this gentleman.
What is the main difference between being on a big budgeted A-list film and being on a small budget B movie? What's the biggest difference in that experience?
In my opinion, first of all, you should give your best effort, whatever. Whether it's a student film or whether it's a frigging big studio movie with, whoever. You should give it your best effort. Now, this is the one thing I've identified over the years. When it's a little independent movie and they've come to me saying, Clint, will you be in my movie? Will you please help? I tend to be a little more relaxed, and I'll make this baseball analogy. As a pitcher, if I'm being asked to pitch in a big studio movie, they've hired me to be their pitcher, I'm going to throw strikes. I'm going to take that baseball and I'm going to get it over the plate. Now, if I'm working on a small little independent movie, I'll tend to nibble at the corners a little bit. I might be a little more daring in an independent movie. I might be a little chancier. I may throw that 2-ball, no strike curve. I may just, as opposed to like when I worked on the Adam Sandler movies and I worked on the Austin Powers movies, these are, although the first Austin Powers movie was a low budget movie, but the big studio movies, you tend to want to play it safe, and I got to watch that because they didn't necessarily hire safe. They hired the best. So it's just my take on what they want. So anyway, that's kind of my take on it.
I'm just curious, because you were mentioning certain roles that you audition for. And auditioning for really anything or putting yourself out there, obviously you're hoping for the best, but obviously there's a room full of other people, hopefuls. In your storied career, is there any role that kind of nags at you, like, I really still wish I could have got that? Because I've seen the finished product and I could have done something different, or it would have been a different outcome. Is there one that one film or role that just got away that you really still think about?
Did you say 12?
Yeah, well,
No, there's a bunch. Listen, you got to understand. At my very best as a young person, I was only getting about 20% of the auditions I went on. So I would have to go on 10 to 15 auditions to book a couple of jobs. So that means there were lots of times where I went in and auditioned and felt like I was really good, and they said thanks but no thanks. And I'll give you some of the highlights, some of the sexy ones. And there's some of these are old, and there was a film that Peter Bogdanovich directed, and I'm brain locking right now on the name of it. It was Randy Quaid ended up playing the part. My goodness. Last Picture Show.
Yeah.
I auditioned to play the slow guy in Last Picture Show. And Peter Bogdanovich, I went in and actually had a couple of auditions. I thought it would be a really cool part to play this kind of, somewhat, retarded guy. And they ended up hiring Randy Quaid. And Randy was great in it. I love Randy. I worked with Randy twice, and so I wasn't mad at that. But I thought I would like to have played that part. There was a movie called Ace, Eli, and Rogers of the Sky. And it was Cliff Robertson and a guy named Eric Shea. Eric Shea played the boy. And Cliff Robertson played this barnstormer. He had a son. And they flew around the country. And listen, it was a movie and it was pretty forgettable, although Steven Spielberg was an associate producer on the movie. I didn't realize that at the time, but he had somehow attached himself to this movie. But the reason why I wanted to be in Ace, Eli, and Rogers of the Sky is it was a coming-of-age story for this boy. And in the movie, Eli gets laid. And I hadn't had that experience yet. And I thought that'd be just a Jim Dandy role to play. And I wanted to be Eli. So that kind of irritated me. There was a movie called Twister. And I went to 2 or 3 different auditions. And they ended up giving the part to Philip Seymour Hoffman. And although I've always thought he was a wonderful, wonderful actor. I mean, his role in Capote was, Truman was just awesome. And I wish I would have played that part. And this one famous one, and it's kind of out there. I've told the story before. But in 1975 or 1976, I auditioned for Star Wars. George Lucas had made American Graffiti. Yeah. Now, I hadn't met George. But then George had the opportunity to make Star Wars. And George knew who I was. So did the casting director knew who I was. And they auditioned me. This is way before there was videotape. And so you didn't send in videotape. You went in and auditioned. I went to the Fox studio lot one afternoon, and there must have been 20 or 30 guys standing around waiting to go in to audition for Luke Skywalker. And I swear to God, I'll never forget this. Mark Hamill was in the crowd. And I had met Mark Hamill because we're about the same age, and we auditioned for the same parts when we were kids. So I was standing around and finally got my opportunity. I walked into the room, and the first thing I see is Francis Ford Coppola sitting in a chair right here to my left. And he's still alive, obviously, but he's a larger-than-life man. And getting to look at him was like, my God, Francis is in the room. And a guy named Gino Havens was in the room. And a guy named Fred Roos was in the room. And I knew Fred Roos he was a casting associate on the Andy Griffith Show. Now, Fred was a longtime friend of both Francis's and George. Now, at the moment, I didn't see George Lucas. George Lucas was in a leather chair turned around. And I came into the room. I recognized who was there, and all of a sudden, his chair spun around, and he looked right at me. It was George Lucas. He looked me in the eye, and he went, "Commander Baylock, Corbomite maneuver." And in my mind, I went, fuck, George, get an effing life. Because you see, I did that episode of Star Trek when I was 6 or 7 years old. I was a baby. And here I was trying to get an adult job. And the director is hearkening back to me as a baby. I was pissed. It threw me off. I didn't audition well. I obviously didn't get the job. Mark did a great job being Luke Skywalker. And I wasn't pissed off, but it was like, Jesus, George, get a fucking life. Well, as it turned out, George had a pretty good life. He's having a pretty good life. And, funny enough, I had the opportunity to... Later in life, I spent time with Fred Roos before he passed away. And he had all the casting notes. He was one of these guys, it was like he kept a scorecard from every day that he ever did casting. And he had the casting notes of me, doing the audition. And so Fred didn't really remember that I auditioned. They were auditioning hundreds of people. And later in life, I've had a chance to spend time with George Lucas. And I asked George, I said, George, you remember me auditioning? He goes, no. They don't. I sure did. So anyway, those are my auditions. Yes, I've had numerous casting situations that just didn't turn out.
Well, thank you so much for this time. While we're at this horror convention and I'm wrapping up, I do want to give a shout out to what I think is an unsung masterpiece in your horror acting catalog. It's a film from 2015 called The Funhouse Massacre that I absolutely adore. I think that movie is fantastic. You're one of the leads in it. If any of you have not seen this movie, please go check it out because you are going to see one of Clint's finest acting roles.
Thank you. It was great. Funhouse Massacre. It delivers on the gore, delivers on the scares, the jump scares. It's got a great sense of humor. It's fun. There's a fellow named Mars Crane who plays this giant of a man, and it's like 6 psychopaths that break out of an insane asylum. Isn't Robert Englund in that movie?
Robert Englund's in it too. Yeah.
So these 6 psychopaths break out of an insane asylum and go down to this funhouse, this fake funhouse,
like a haunted attraction on Halloween. Basically, it's a Halloween night movie.
And we kill all the actors that are supposed to be scare people, and we take over and we really start massacring people. It's a fun picture.
It's a really fun movie. Go check it out and go get your photographs with Clint Howard right after this panel. Yeah. Thank you so much, Clint. Let's give it up for him one more time.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.